All right, I think I am live. Let me know if you can hear me right away, because that seems to always be a problem, but I tested this dang mic like 20 times, so hopefully it actually works this time. But otherwise, hello, my name is Jacob, and I'm a Norse Pagan. It's been a long time since I've done a YouTube public live stream. Oh, see, and that's why I need to go ahead and silence that. So, hello once again. I apologize. It has been so long since I did this. I mostly do the live streams on Patreon as a Patreon reward. However, this seemed like a really good episode to do as far as a live stream, because I really wanted to bring the community into the involvement in discussing Vikings. So one of the reasons I decided to do this is I actually put out that poll kind of getting everyone's vibe for what they felt about the Vikings TV show, just to kind of gauge with the community, because it seems like some people in the community really hate the Vikings TV show. So I put out that poll, and the results, as you know, I'm beginning to really love these polls. But I think I having the audience that the Wisdom of Odin has, it really gives, I think it's an interesting perspective into a lot of Norse paganism, because usually these are like 2,000 votes per poll. So I feel like there's a really good gauge for the community. So in this poll, I was surprised to find out that 43% of people within the poll thought Vikings was a great show. And then 39% of people thought Vikings was fine, was a perfectly fine show. And then only 3% thought it was bad. And then only 4% thought it was so bad that it's tainted the faith today. Which, if I think about all the things I've heard about Vikings, at least online, in the past few years, being in the, really heavy into the Norse pagan community, I would think that 4% would be much higher. So after reading that poll and after discussing it with a few people, I actually had stopped watching Vikings at the end of season 4, which I feel like a lot of people did. And I tried to watch a little bit of season 4 and started season 5, and I was like, no, this show is it's just too different. And I stopped watching it. So I actually hadn't seen all the way through to the end. And after talking to a few people in the community, they're like, no, you need to take a look at it. There's some really good pagan scenes. I would love to hear your feedback on what those scenes were like. And so I sucked it up, and I sat down and I watched the show. And after finishing the show, I would say I'm in the 39% that Vikings is fine. I think season 1 through 4 was great, and then the end was just kind of weird. But that's what we're going to talk about today, is just analyzing all the different seasons. So basically the way I have this set up, because obviously I want to read some of your comments, I'm going to start with each season, obviously moving pretty quick through season 1 through 4. And then as soon as we get to season 5 and 6, since they're so long, I'll slow down. But in between each season, I'm going to take a break to read some of your comments. I'm hoping to keep this around an hour long. That way people can come back and enjoy it later on. So first off, if you're live here with us, which right now there's 45 of you, thank you so much for joining us live. And if you're watching this after the fact, thank you so much for watching this. I know live videos are a little bit weird on YouTube, but that's why I hope the content is good. And then you have to deal with me burping, which there usually is quite a bit of burping, and sometimes I do leave it in the videos for you. So I'll give you a couple minutes here just to say hello. So many of you have come to the channel since my last live stream, so definitely it's going to be wild seeing all these new names on here, but lots of skulls. So thank you all for joining me. Thank you so much for watching the content. I think the last live stream I did was actually way back. I think it was around Yule time was the last one I did. This year has been such a whirlwind. We've had 10 gatherings this year. I've attended, I think, 5 of them. And so I've recorded, of course, 2 of them, which put them on the channel, but there's just been so much going on. The Wisdom of Odin community is, really flourishing. So many new people, coming to these events, and, it's just been a lot of work, but it's been an amazing time too. Hope you've enjoyed the content as well. But let me go ahead and read some of these. Again, I'm not gonna be able to get to everyone, but I hope you have a good conversation in the live chat as well. So let's see here. Lots of salutations and hails. Roderick Fennell, it's good to see you. Daryl Waldron, talking about the Last Kingdom. Mashek, Skull from Germany. Skull. Dante Abate, Skull as well. Small Scale Life, I've seen you in the comments a lot, so good afternoon to you as well. So yeah, welcome. I do tend to read the majority of the comments against my better judgment. I do go through about once a day just to see, so I recognize some of you from the comments. Thank you for watching this content. Let's see here. Oh yeah, this is my, I get so overwhelmed with everything in a live stream, which is why I've kind of dialed back on them, because I have the live chat that's just constantly going. I have my notes I want to talk about. I have to actually talk and realize that everyone's watching me. So it's pretty crazy. But welcome everybody. So it seems like we got people from all around the world. Norse Witch, it's good to see you. Good to hear from you again. Good to hear from you again as well. I hope you're doing well. I think we got a couple people in here from Germany. I know we got a couple from Spain, it seems like. It seems like we have a lot of international folk, which is really good, which is one of the reasons I actually wanted to have this at about 3 p.m. Eastern time, because I know it's about 9 o'clock in Germany and, you know, around the world. So someone from France as well. That's amazing to see. But I hope this music in the background isn't too loud. I was kind of testing it. I have tinnitus in one of my ears, so I constantly hear ringing. So I usually have ambient music on, but also I just don't like YouTube videos personally that are just blank. So I do try to have a little bit of ambience. Norse Witch says it's nice not to have to stay up for a live. Thank you. Hey, this one's all for you guys. Devin says he's from the magical land of Massachusetts. Hey, you got a word that most people can't pronounce as a state. So there you go. Let's see here. Skull from Georgia. Skull as well. Hearing damage for the win for sure. I don't know how to. Okay, I have to read that. Someone. I just want to say I used to think this channel was a tad cringe. I've opened my mind since then. Oh, someone one of the mods deleted it, but it was an interesting comment to say the least. Oh, YouTube live streams. Why are you so interesting? Anyways. Let's see here. I want to start with season 1. So if anyone doesn't know, I actually have done a video on the Vikings TV show. It was one of the first 10 videos I did. So I ended up doing, I think, season 1 through 4, because that's what I watched and what I really enjoyed. So I really go in depth in that video if you want to check it out. I think it's just called a Norse Pagan analysis of the Vikings TV show. It's only got like 2,000 views. It's a pretty small video. It was one of my early ones, like I said. But I really deep dived in the first 4 seasons. But I'm going to kind of go through them, see what things stick out with me. I didn't start my rewatch at season 1. That would just take too long. I really just picked up at the this is officially your spoiler warning. We're now talking about everything's Viking. As I put in the title, as I put in the, the thing in the beginning, this is a spoiler talk. This is your last warning. We're spoiling things now. Okay, Ragnar dies. So right after the end of Ragnar's death is basically when I stopped. I watched for a few episodes after that, just to give it a chance. And, it was as I feared. So let's go ahead and start with season 1, things that I remember. So I think the standout for season 1 is how simple the story was. You really got the, I should say as well, if you have any comments with the season I'm talking about, that would be a good thing to have in the live chat to keep the conversation going about the individual seasons. So season 1, I thought was standout because it was so simple, which if you watch the series to the end, it just got so complicated that I think it really took away from the show, both as a show and as a, Viking, experience, so to speak. But I also think season 1 had some of the best pagan scenes. This is also where you have the Temple of Uppsala scene, where they all travel up to, Uppsala to, basically have this big, ritual and ceremony. And it's very interesting because the show doesn't really take the time to have full religious episodes moving forward. So the fact that this entire episode was focused on the religion aspect was really fascinating. And I think it was really cool to see the temple. They had giant idols to the gods there. Well, yes, there was, the human sacrifices thing there. We don't do that anymore, kids. I mean, most pagan religions had some form of human sacrifice one way or the other. I don't know why people obsess over that with the Norse. It was true of everywhere else too. But, the scene, was really good. I really loved the Uppsala episode. And of course, the very intro of the show, we also have that moment with Odin wandering the battlefield and soldiers' bodies getting taken up to the sky. All things that changed as the show evolved later on, but I really enjoyed season 1. Like if I go back and watch Vikings, I really just watch season 1, especially before Ragnar and Lagertha break up, because we all know that breaks all of our own hearts. But yeah, let me take a break here for anyone in here. Miketh Demon said, I've never actually thought about watching it. Is it any good? If I had the time, I would create a list of episodes to watch. Again, the Uppsala episode, I think it's episode 8. Season 1 is really good. I really do think season 1 and season 2 and even season 3, as I'll get to later, season 3 is to me the height of the show, the best moment the show's ever had. So I think if you're going to watch it as a Norse pagan, I think up to season 3 and even up to Ragnar's death in season 4 is honestly amazing. It's a great experience. It's one of my favorite TV shows in that moment. It's just what happens afterwards that drags it down quite a bit. Let's see here. So Chris Harden says, probably put down sucks and down says, yeah, we don't do that anymore. So yeah, my mother told me it was a really good moment we'll get to eventually. Seswith says, supper is ready. Need to go. Sadly, I'll watch it later. Sorry, Jacob. Enjoy it, people. Skull and hail the gods. Hail the gods, and skull to Spain as well. Oh no, they're just, you guys are just singing My Mother Told Me. Oh no, I should have saw this coming. Floki is the closest thing to a real pagan, I reckon. Yeah, so Floki is obviously, I think, a character a lot of people in the Norse pagan community really connect with. I mean, I have done face paint similar to his. He is definitely, at least in the first 4 seasons, the embodiment of, I think, what a crazy good Norse pagan is. Obviously, he is flawed, as everyone else is in the show, and as we are as humans. But I'll go ahead and kind of move into season 2 as well, and we'll kind of talk about this idea that I don't know if they intended this. They had to have, because it was very clear in their imagery in the show. But very early on, once again, if this music is too loud, let me know. It's loud for me, but again, in my testing, it wasn't too loud for you guys. Let me know, because I can turn it down real quick if we need to. But as far as the, characters being influenced by the gods, you can really look at certain characters like Ragnar and see Odin influences in his story. Same thing with Floki. I mean, you literally have scenes taken from famous paintings as well as stories from the prose and poetic Edda that show them in godlike moments that I think are one of the reasons the show is worth watching. I mean, Ragnar literally has a hanging from a tree scene in season 4. Floki has a betrayal of Ragnar. I think it's in season 3, if I remember correctly. He betrays the gods, flees from the gods as Loki does, and is even tortured as Loki was. So again, there's some really cool moments like that. I don't know where characters like Rollo really fit in. Maybe more as a Tyr character or a Thor character. Maybe I always saw Bjorn more as a Thor character, the son of Ragnar, the son of Odin. So I think that would be a little bit more closely related to, and then maybe Rollo a little bit more of a Tyr character, perhaps. But I don't know. They don't really focus on Tyr much in the show at all, because, I mean, eventually I may do a Tyr video, but there's so little information on Tyr that it's hard to do an entire exploration of him, and I don't think that's one of the reasons I don't think many shows actually explore him as well. Let's see here. Sethanel says Floki is the Joker of Vikings. Everyone thinks they're him until they realize he's absolutely insane, then they totally act like they're him. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, Floki, looking back in a historical context, I do think people tend to look at the pre-Christian Scandinavian society as a very somber place. But people were just as varied and unique as they are now. We all have different personalities, different upbringings. While they may not be as an extreme back then, at the same time, I do believe that people still had varying personalities. So there may have been fanatical people like Floki that honored the gods and really were, zealots in their belief. But most people were probably like, everyone else in the show. They struggled with the faith from times to times. They, kind of just did it. It was part of culture and society. But not everyone was like Floki. I would almost guarantee you that. But as modern practitioners, I do think we kind of idolize that. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think, he definitely has traits of feeling the gods and living in nature and solitary things that really make us connect with him. And I do see him very much as a Loki-like character, obviously. AJ Band says it's a very good series. It doesn't represent true paganism, but I found it to be very powerful, and it helped me to feel more connected to the old ways afterwards. So I think that's one of the things in season 2 we really start to see. Look at that transition. So I think if the show did anything really well, it's to set an aesthetic mood. And I think that is what's going to live on as the Vikings' legacy, as they establish the modern pagan aesthetic. And as much as some people want to run away from that, we cannot deny that the Ragnar haircut, the Floki makeup, the filters they put on the video, the music they used. I mean, this show was a funnel for so much of things. While not necessarily, the show wasn't made to establish Norse paganism, it definitely became this nexus for Norse pagan things. We saw so many great bands come from this. I mean, Danheim was in this show, Wardruna was in the show. Einar Celtic played a character in this show. And later seasons, Hylund came in, and I think OC and the Jupiter even had a song in the very end of the season as well. So this really became a stage. Think Vikings as a stage for a lot of Norse pagan content. So I don't think the show ever intended on that, but that's what it became. So this aesthetic that the show created will live on for generations to come. I'm almost guarantee of it. And one of the reasons I made this episode and finished the show is because I was playing, like, you know, I'm a gamer at times, and I was playing like Apex Legends, and they keep on coming out with like Viking skins. And, you know, I know Call of Duty had a Viking skin, and I just downloaded a new game, and it's like the Hoods, Shadows, Heroes and Legends or something like that. And they had runes in the game. Vikings have picked up in popularity so much the last 10 years, which does have its troubles, as it's, you know, definitely going to give some false ideas to people getting into the actual faith part of this. But we cannot deny that Vikings really was that ship that launched, you know, this huge fleet of Viking media. So far as season 2 goes, this really is what establishes England as a subplot for further episodes. Ragnar really comes out as a character in this. While he did betray Lagertha, which, you know, hurts me personally. I hate watching that because Aslog is just nowhere near as good. I mean, is there anyone an Aslog fan in here? I doubt it. So like Lagertha as a character, you know, seeing her grow separately as well was very interesting, because obviously she becomes a very favorite character moving forward as she's giving her own plot lines, which I think is really good for her as a shield maiden and eventually as a queen. But definitely, you know, this season establishes many different plot lines you'll begin to follow as the series, you know, kind of grows. But the core tenets of this season are definitely, you know, Floki, Lagertha, Ragnar, Rollo, and we see Bjorn begin to develop as a character. Season 2 and season 3 for Bjorn is amazing, because you get to see Bjorn go from this small boy to learning how to become a warrior, learning how to follow in his father's footsteps while finding his own way. I can't remember if exactly if it's season 2 or 3. I think it's 2, where he actually goes and like kills that polar bear in the frozen north by himself, and then like shows up at that dude's house and is like, "I'm taking your wife," and then like takes his wife. Like, that is like some of the best Bjorn content in the show. So I mean, again, we'll take a historical accuracy break. We just have to accept the fact that the show is not historically accurate. I would give it like a 20% historical accuracy, and maybe most people would give it less than that. And I definitely feel like after the death of Ragnar, the show went to like 2%. You know, the show does try to follow some form of source material when it comes to Ragnar, at least in the saga of the Volsungs. But after his death, it all gets thrown out of the water. Basically, none of his children, none of his sons follow out their legacy as history portrays it, which is definitely a detriment to the show. But in finishing season 2, basically, season 1, you see him become an earl. Season 2, you see Ragnar become a king. And that really establishes season 3 as the best season in this entire series. So if I had anything left to say about season 2, this is also when the show was still at its shortest. This is when they were only doing, I think, 8 to 10 episodes. And season 3 is when they established the 20 episode seasons. So that's probably another reason why season 3 is so good, because you get so much more of this content. Let me take a break here and read some of it. Seth L says, "I respect a few of Bjorn's wives, not going to lie." Yeah. As I was taking my notes for this, you know, I'm trying to write down names so I don't forget them. But Bjorn married so many. What did he have? 4 wives in the end? Right? I think it's 5. He had 5 wives in the end, 2 of which stayed at the very end. Oh my gosh. And I definitely think that's where his character starts going downhill, is when they fixate on his love life and less of the deeds he had done personally. Obviously, he did tour the Mediterranean, which we do see in season 4. As him going off on his own, but him as a character really took a step back. While his deeds were great, him as a actual acted character were kind of lessered. Yeah, Daryl Waldron says Rollo wasn't Ragnar's brother. Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things in this show. I think I took a note down where the show really struggled whether it wanted to tell the story of Ragnar and his sons or the entire story of the Vikings. And it definitely seemed to start following the entire story of the Vikings by the end. Because something I noted is Ragnar was technically Lindisfarne was the first Viking raid, which historically is the start of the Viking Age. And by the end of the show, with, you know, again, I've already warned you about spoilers, with Bjorn's death, you know, they kind of mentioned that this is the end of the Viking Age. It's like, wait a second, the Viking Age was like 300 years. And so the show, while it only takes place in one generation, really, 2 maybe 60-year span at most, is the entirety of the Viking Age within the show. So I really do think that's one of the things that eventually shoots them in the foot, is the fact that they try to both tell the story of Ragnar, but also tell the entirety of the Viking story. I feel like they should have condensed in a little bit more. And once again, I think this is one of the reasons that the show kind of lacked in the final seasons. Let's see here. Norse Witch, I hated Bjorn as a character. Oh, I loved moments of Bjorn, but that was about it. Let's see. What wasn't Aslog his real wife, and Ivar was his firstborn? I'm Team Lagertha, but for sure, historically, Aslog was his actual wife, I think. I don't know too much about. I don't even know where Lagertha is written as a historical character, but I do think, if I remember correctly, that Ragnar is listed to have married twice. I don't know if it's confirmed that that was Lagertha or not, but I do know for certain that Aslog was his main wife, who he had majority of his children with. The relationship between heroes and the poetic and prose Edda is just as complicated as it is with the gods. It's hard to keep track of them all. Let's see here. Buddy Miles Jr. says Netflix is going to redo the series. I know they're going to create another series called Vikings Valhalla, if I remember correctly, which is, I don't know why they would keep that name considering Assassin's Creed Valhalla came out. A Wolf's Day, yeah, was the end really that end of the Viking age or the beginning of something new? With lines from, I forget is it Gunhild or Gunlod, Bjorn's wife at the very end. Why can't I remember her name? That's one of the names I didn't write down. But yeah, with her death at the end, she basically establishes that this is the end of the golden age of Vikings. So maybe it's not the end of the Viking age, but it seemed to end it pretty quick. The timing is a problem in this show, and we'll definitely get to that later. But I need to get to season 5. Oh my gosh, I've been rambling too much. So I'm going to quickly go through season 3 and season 4 and transition to season 5. So season 3, I think, is the highlight of the show. This is where you have the Siege of Paris, the multiple story arc where they raid Paris, and you have really great scenes here. Honestly, I even enjoyed the scenes of watching the French react to this invasion. It's a really great Ragnar scene, and you begin to see his descent into madness, so to speak, which is a great Odin moment as well. And this is also where you start to introduce new characters of the show, which kind of laid the seeds for the show's destruction, because this is also when you introduce Harold, Harold Finehair as a character, which when he first rolled up, I didn't think this dude would be a part of this show until the very end. And he is definitely a character to me that has moments of good, but I didn't like him when he showed up. And by the end, his death was really good, but he's kind of a terrible dude. And throughout the show, I was really just wanting him to die. And they kept on giving him moments of redemption and then moments of near death and then moments of evil. I didn't understand his character very much. So the establishment of certain characters in season 3 definitely did not do the show justice in the end. But season 3 as a whole is still a really powerful season. Season 4, even though Ragnar didn't die until about halfway through the season, you can definitely see the seeds of the show's failures coming through. This is where the next generation had to start taking over. While Ragnar's descent into the madman in the woods who just hung out with his Asian person and did drugs in a bathtub, which was just weird. That was a weird scene. I mean, as much as I love Ragnar as a character, was her name Edu? I can't remember, but that whole thing was just really weird to me. It was such a weird relationship. So let's see here. Tango Sierra says, Jacob, if you can see this, I'm curious on your opinion of this. What is your thoughts on the Christianization and de-Christianization of Ragnar? So that's good because we're in season 4. So obviously one of Ragnar's things he struggles with, which again is not historically accurate as far as we know, but his struggle personally with Christianity, which is a theme we see in many of the Viking characters in the show. So Athelstan as a character, which I completely forgot to mention him, but it's Athelstan. King Egbert loved him. Ragnar loved him. Whatever. It's not important to paganism. But you do actually see, Athelstan kind of struggle with the connection of the gods and Christian God as he sees both of them. When he's in Norway, he sees Odin, he sees the gods. And then when he goes back, he sees Christ again. So he has that struggle. And that struggle, I think, also transfers to Ragnar as well. I think as Ragnar left his homeland, he began to really struggle with what are the gods, what was him, what was fate. And that's one of Ragnar's main story threads is his struggles with fate. He wants to beat fate. And ironically, this may have led him to Christianity at times, but in the end, fate did catch up with him. It is kind of up to the observer whether he died a Christian or if he died a pagan. It's kind of complicated because I think he wanted to be a Christian, but I think in order to fulfill his destiny, he accepted the fact that he was a pagan. Because obviously this master plan of going to England to basically get back at the English, because his death was going to be, it was this weird kind of like martyr, which is a very Christian idea, where he was going to die to ensure that his sons invaded England and got revenge for the fact that they betrayed him. It was the last thing he could do in his crazy mad life. So his death was pagan, but like in a way was a Christian ideal. Of course, this is a show, so we can't sit here and say, well, did Ragnar die a pagan or a Christian? Historical Ragnar, if he was one person, probably died a pagan. If you actually look up the death of Ragnar as it's told, and I think in the Annals, or the Chronicles, whatever it is, he did like either, I think it was laugh or sing while he sat in the snake pit, which really scared the English soldiers. So Ragnar definitely historically died a pagan death, I believe. But in the show, I think it's really left up to you. But regardless, his death scene is phenomenal. Just like his death speech will echo throughout, I think, many of our, media minds for a very long time. Travis Fimmel, if you ever watch him like interview, he's such a soft-spoken dude, but him playing Ragnar is absolutely amazing all the way through, even though there are some weird moments. But it's immediately after his death that we begin seeing the problems in the show, because the next episode, you have this weird moment where the show gets really fixated on love arcs, which is, I don't know why they got so fixated on it. Obviously, they had them before, but maybe it's just because Ragnar's not there that they become really bad. But you have this weird scene where Lagertha's girlfriend starts sleeping with Bjorn, who is Lagertha's son. And then I think it's Astrid, and then Astrid goes to see Harold, and Harold like ends up basically stealing her as a queen and all this weird stuff. And then while they're doing like this pagan ceremony of a human sacrifice, which again is weird because for most part we know human sacrifices were either hung, they were mostly hung, but the stabbing through the heart is weird to me. But you have this human sacrifice scene tied with Bjorn cuckolding his mom. That's when the show to me was like, what do you want to do here? And so to me that really shows it. But this really what the end of Ragnar shows is that these side characters really had to step up, because we already saw Lagertha and Floki already taking a step down, Bjorn kind of taking a step down, and they really wanted to make way for the other Ragnar sons. And they really couldn't hold the torch, in my opinion. While they all individually may have had good moments, they never really able to handle the sheer magnitude of these relatively young and unknown actors playing these roles. I mean, for fuck's sake, they killed Sigurd because they didn't know what to do with him. Like, let's be real. They killed Sigurd because they honestly had no idea what to do with that character. So they were like, have I ever kill him? Essentially, none of these characters actually fulfill any of their historical roles. Ivar the Boneless, maybe, because traditionally, like historically, Ivar the Boneless did control the Great Heathen Army at some point, and then died controlling the Great Heathen Army. But the way they did it is very bizarre. And of course, Ivar's weird, I'm a god king thing, and then going to Russia, all these things are, of course, not historically accurate, at least to our knowledge. And it's, to me, this forced conflict between the brothers, the individual problems of the brothers were just really poorly written. And so for me, the show really did take a step back after Ragnar's death, just because these sons couldn't fulfill the role of their father. X Sniper 2000X says season 5 is definitely the weakest of all the seasons, in my opinion. I would agree with you on that. As we're moving into season 5, I have a lot of problems with season 5. Season 6 has some amazing scenes. Absolutely love seeing the scenes in season 6, but for the most part, it is still pretty weak and suffers the problems of season 5. Coffee break. All right. Sorry, I'm just trying to catch up on some of these comments here. I know this has just been rolling the whole time. Regular Vixen says romance sells, and that's typical Hollywood drama. Yeah, they definitely, I think, again, the problem is they moved away from anything they know. Just like Lost. I think they wrote the story up to the point of Ragnar's death, just like Lost wrote it up to the point of the hatch being opened. And after that, they didn't know what to do. So what they had is the show they know needed a couple more seasons. And so they looked at all the characters they had and they just started writing subplots. And that's why a lot of them go to dead ends, why some of them intermingle in weird ways. And a lot of characters go back and forth on decisions because they were writing episode to episode rather than having an overall story arc planned. So another thing in season 5 I wanted to talk about, which I think the show fumbled a lot, was Floki. Floki is a character went through a lot of great struggles, and they were very close to converting him to Islam, which would have been very heartbreaking to the pagan community. But he obviously went through a lot of problems, and he ended up, just traveling to Iceland. That became his destiny. Now, historically, the character of Floki did discover Iceland for the Norwegian people, for the Scandinavian peninsula. So that is accurate to some extent. But after that, I feel like they shot Floki's scenes in the ugliest parts of Iceland. I know many of you have seen, drone footage or just footage of Iceland. It is a hauntingly beautiful country. And while there's a couple scenes when he first lands there that are beautiful, where they actually decide to build this settlement, which I'm sure was just some backdrop in like the end of like the shooting cycle because they couldn't afford to shoot in Iceland or something. I don't know, but wherever they decided to shoot that village was disgusting. It was a rock pit. Like, it's Iceland. How did you mess up Iceland? And the whole Iceland drama thing of like, it was cool seeing them build the temple, sure, but then they just had this like conflict of, are we still Vikings? And we needed to cast aside our Viking ways. Season 5 spends so much time on this boring Iceland drama. And I really feel like they fumbled the ball on that. I think they could have really done something with Floki in Iceland. And of course, at the end of season 5, we kind of see the end of Floki as a character. He obviously comes back at season 6 to some degree, but we see his story arc essentially end and him getting buried in the cave when she discovers the Irish cross in that cave, which again is just really weird. It's like, who put this Irish cross in the middle of a giant cave? Like, I know there was an Irish cross discovered in Iceland, but like Floki discovering it, it was just, they really did Floki's character dirty. I think they gave him a little bit of something at the very end, but yeah, season 5 Iceland drama was dumb. Also was really dumb was God King Ivar. I absolutely hated this plot line. I know this might be slightly like, some people like Ivar as a character. I know one of my friends, like Ian in the community, me and him argue about it. He's like, I like Ivar as a character. I'm like, I can't stand Ivar as a character. I feel like they tested a lot of the actors to see who could carry the role as the predominant character, and they tossed it for Ivar for too long. And Ivar really could not handle the hard role as the front runner of the show. And not only, like the way they did him, I have nothing really against the actor, but I really just didn't enjoy his, the way he perceived Ivar. He really just seemed like a naggy kid. His lines to me got really cringy at times. Whereas Ragnar's lines were really badass and really like, you're just like, yeah, I want to go into battle. Like Ivar's madness moments, I'm just like, ooh, I really do not like Ivar's scenes for the most part. The Battle of York is pretty good, but after that, I really just don't see much love for Ivar in my mind. Pitskirt's character is basically useless. Ube doesn't do anything. Bjorn kind of sits on the sidelines. The whole brother conflict was kind of just boring because none of the characters are really fleshed out enough to make me care. And this is also the season in season 5 where they just start killing off random side characters because I feel like they wanted that Game of Thrones-esque drama. So they just started killing people left and right in the show that they didn't need anymore. And I just didn't find it very enjoyable at all. You obviously have the brother civil war, and you also have Halfdan killing his brother. Oh, what's his name? Or Harold killing his brother, and then Halfdan the Black was his brother. Yes, okay. There we go. Got the names. That was obviously a very tragic scene. I did enjoy Halfdan the Black, or Halfdan the Black. Yes. I did enjoy his character. I really think he had an enjoyable arc, but of course he dies. Astrid dies. Bjorn's third wife dies, who he had been married to for like a day. So just don't get married to Bjorn. It's just not a good idea. All right, I'm going to take a moment to see if anyone hates me for saying I don't like Ivar. My Norse Pagan Germany. Hey man, just checking on to see before I head to bed in Germany. My Norse Anthony, it was great seeing you, brother. I hope you're doing all right. Best of luck on your channel. Hey, if you haven't checked out my Norse Pagan Journey, make sure you check him out. It's a good channel. Let's see here. Oh my gosh. Okay, Anthony says I do not like Ivar much either. Thank you. I have at least one supporter in here. Hold on. Centennial says Ivar gang, but also fuck Ivar. I'm confused. Let's see here. Let's see if I missed anything. Floki slaughtering the Muslim priest was the weirdest scene. It was sick, but like, what did that scene have to happen? Yeah, I kind of agree on that as well. Let's see here. He discovered Iceland only. Daryl Waldron. I do think he did eventually go back, but I don't think he actually liked it there. I can't remember if he actually died in Iceland, but yeah, he came back, and the first place he landed was good. like historically. And then I think when they came back, they landed somewhere different, and it wasn't actually as good. So they actually had a really bad winter there. Say KT Wolfsbane just got work. What did I miss? We're mostly just going through the seasons of Vikings right now. We're just now getting into season 5, soon to move into season 6, where I'll slow it down a little bit and as we digest into this series. All right, so Zach Stegel says Ivar kind of sucked. Okay, cool. I'm not alone on this. I definitely don't think he could carry the show, I think is the ultimate thing. Let me see if I'm missing anything. So a couple notes from season 5. Bishop Hegman, I think was his name, or Hedman. I did enjoy his character just because it was so zealot. He was like the Christian equivalent to Floki. So I would have loved to see some scenes of them bashing each other. That would have been really good. I don't think they have a scene together, if I remember correctly. But just like, like he has sex that one time and he's like running through the thorn bushes. He's like, "Forgive me, Lord, for I have sinned." Like, it's just so funny. I love it. So I liked his character up to the point where like he started sleeping with Lagertha, and I was like, why is this happening? Again, the show is just like, who's not sleeping with somebody right now? And then they got everyone together and they're like, well, Lagertha isn't sleeping with Bishop Hegmund. Let's just go ahead and make them bang. So I don't feel like they had a reason for making characters sleep with each other besides they just needed characters to sleep with each other. Again, like rolling back a little bit, like the whole weird thing where all brothers, like you are the sons of Ragnar, and they're all obsessed with that one girl. I forget her name, and they're like all sleeping with her, and it's weird. Oh, that's the other thing that was weird about season 4. I think that's when they introduced like, I think Vitsirk or Ube marries, I forget her name, the one girl who was a slave that they were all banging. And then they get married, and then like he's just like, "Why don't you join us, brother?" And then they like, weird. Why are these things in the show? I don't know. To me, that's not entertainment. To me, that's just lazy writing. Like someone else said, sex sells, and that's clearly what they were trying to do. They were trying to be Game of Thrones. Let's see here. Warrior Bishop Boy was a badass, I think. Yeah, and I think the actor gave that role his all. Like the guy playing the bishop was awesome. I love that. Don't even get me started with Ivar's mother. Let's see here. Stefan says, Hivitskirk was the last in-depth person. I'm going to kill my brother, but literally always never convened idea. Bjorn was 100% right about him. Okay. So let's see. It's finishing season 5. My final thing. So one of the things I really was enjoying about Vitskirk's character was his Buddhist plot line. I'm pretty sure that was season 5, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. So he had a Buddhist plot line for like 2 episodes where he like met a guy who like gave him a Buddha idol and like was really starting to like meditate and things like that. I'm like, oh, finally they're giving Vitskirk something to do, something that makes him different and unique. And then they completely drop that plot line. Like he's just like sitting there on the side of the cliff and just like drops the idol and is like, I'm done with this. And then his character takes a steep decline into absolutely worthless. So Vitskirk moving into season 6. Let me see. Am I missing anything? Inconsistent aging. Okay, I need to bring this up. This is probably the worst thing to the show. As someone that's into film, someone that really enjoys, critiquing film, but also making videos, this show is so bad at aging people. So bad. So Lagertha and Ragnar are a great example of this. When Ragnar dies, you can tell this dude is old. You can tell he's easily in his 50s. They have prosthetic beards. They have a way to make his face look old. And literally all they did to Lagertha is give her a gray wig. And yes, they did do things in season 6 to make her look older. Glad they did that. But season 5, it looked really weird where you had this woman who's clearly in her 30s. And I think she is, the actress is a little older, but hey, awesome. But ultimately, yes, it looks like a woman wearing a gray wig through the entire series. And it's like you have Ragnar, and this is the Viking age. It's a rough time. She's a warrior. She's been punched in the face a lot, stabbed a couple of times. Why is she just running around with a gray wig? Like they should have aged her more, especially when all the other characters around have aged. This is especially clear in characters like Harold Finehair. He barely ages throughout the show. By the time of his arrival, when Bjorn is relatively young in his 20s and early 30s, to the point where Bjorn dies, he's in his 40s or 50s. Harold doesn't age at all. Harold should have aged 30 years or 20 years between the moment he ran into Ragnar to the point Bjorn died. And then of course you have the fact that Ivar, Ube, and Ivar, Ube, and Vitskirk barely age at all. They get a couple new tattoos, but by the end of the show, they should be in their 30s or 40s by the time these characters die or see their end, but they barely look different than the time they were first introduced to this show. Whereas again, characters like Floki have these massive beards, look super old. And of course, Bjorn ages relatively well as well. So the inconsistencies in aging this show is something that really takes me away from the experience. This show takes place over about 60 years. And maybe not even that. I would say about 50 years is what the show takes up. Because, I mean, you figure Bjorn at the start of the show is 9 years old. When he dies, he's probably about 50 at tops. So the show is only taking place over 40-ish years. And you can't tell me that the aging is right on the show. It's so weird. It bothers me. Okay, I got that out of the way. Let's see here. Am I missing anything? I feel like Elias Alone says, I feel like the Christian aspect of the show completely took over, and it really shows. And I feel like the whole thing made it very uncomfortable because it got so obviously pandering. Yeah, I do think like they started to notice, like, obviously, you know, there's many people that work on this show, and I do think they began to notice that they were starting to influence the pagan community. And obviously most people behind the show are probably not pagan, and many are probably Christian. And they were like, ooh, we're attracting too many pagans. Like, we're actually adding to paganism. And they probably started adding some more Christian stuff. And at the end of the show, I feel like there's only a few characters that actually survive that actually still have pagan moments. And so, again, I think it's one of the things I love about the first few seasons of the show. While Ragnar does have his problems, they still have some really good pagan themes. And then they got really, you know, like King Olaf. You know, I think King Olaf is one of the kings that converted to Christianity historically. But that King Olaf character was weird, guys. That was a weird dude. And so his death at the very end, where he like was on fire like a Buddhist monk, but then heard the voice of God, really bizarre scene. Redneck Rebel says Shield maidens don't age like other women. I guess not, except they age overnight at one point when they disappear in the woods. Keegan David says the heathen Christian line is probably one of my favorite lines because it shows how proud they are of their gods. I know the context is more intense, but you get my meaning. Yeah, still one of the cringiest scenes to me, though. I know a lot of people love that scene, but yeah, I don't know. The dialogue was just weird to me. William J says, I ended up really liking the Christian characters in the show more than the Norse ones, especially Bishop Hedman. I agree. And I honestly think that, like, Hedman is a really good character. Alfred was a pretty good character in the end. The last note I had in season 5 before we finish off in season 6, because I have a lot to talk about in season 6. Season 5, they talk a lot about the England drama. Like, the England drama is really obsessive in season 5, whereas in season 6 it kind of just disappears until the very end. But especially with Alfred and his brother and the plot to kill him and things like that. I definitely think you see Alfred come forward and the actor playing him come forward as a character, which I enjoy seeing. But for the most part, I think the England drama kind of falls on deaf ears. You know, King Egbert to me was the peak. King Egbert and Ayla were the peak of the English drama. Really loved their characters. Egbert was, I mean, Ragnar is an amazing character, but their relationship, Egbert and Ragnar and the actors that play them, was phenomenal. Like, Ragnar and Egbert's argument over heaven and Valhalla was great. I absolutely loved it. They were really good counterparts to one another. So losing both of their characters so close to one another was definitely a detriment to the show. So moving into season 6, we have a lot to talk about here. So I'm just going to roll through the list of the main characters that die in season 6, which is one of the reasons that I think it struggles. Ivar's death, Bjorn's death, Lagertha's death, Harald's death, Bjorn's death, Russia, King Oleg's death, and then Hvitserk, Floki's, all their weird things. And there's a bunch of other things that happen. I think I'm missing characters that die. But there is so many main characters dying in season 6 that it's so many blows to the face. I feel like you're not really allowed to absorb it. All right. Keegan Davids, can we do something like this for Assassin's Creed Valhalla? I do have a review for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and I think on the podcast we have talked about Vikings and video games a little bit more in depth. This is definitely more similar to what we talk about on the podcast. It's way more of a casual conversation. Like, obviously, when I'm recording episodes, I have this huge journal right next to me that I just take these massive notes on. So the videos have definitely become way more note heavy than I expected this channel to become, but I do want to make sure I'm giving, you the sources and then my opinion on the end, but I want to make sure everyone has the sources of information for this faith. But I do enjoy doing things like live streams. And like I said, the podcast definitely are a little bit more like a conversation. So as far, damn, did Bjorn die twice? Well, he kind of did. I think I wrote it down twice. I did write down Bjorn's death twice. Okay. So where should we begin? Guys, where should we begin? The first comment I'll read. Should I begin with Ivar's death, Bjorn's death, Lagertha's death, Harald's death, or like the Russian storyline? What do you guys want to hear me talk about first? Or the weird Fitzgerald stuff? The Fitzgerald stuff. And Resto Perea says, they said the Great Viking Age is gone, but they are wrong. 2021, it's began. We were just sleeping for a while. All right, the first one was Ivar. All right, so Ivar's character, season 6, still absolutely hate him. They feel like they drag him through the mud so long. I did begin to enjoy his scenes with the King Oleg and the Russian thing. That was an interesting thing. I enjoyed King Oleg as a character. I thought he was a good counterpart to Ivar, you know, because he was crazy, but like a calm crazy. And I have a love for Russian history. Like I took a lot of Russian classes in college, and I absolutely loved learning about like the old days of Russia. It was a very fascinating time, especially before the Mongol rule. And the fact that they were, you know, Kiev and Rus Vikings, which is one of the things they explore with King Oleg. So Ivar's scenes with him, I think I only enjoyed them because I was observing interesting scenes. Like Ivar's whole thing where he was like a pilgrim on the Silk Road, then ran into King Oleg, and then King Oleg was like, I will install you as a puppet king in Norway. It was okay. And, you know, watching Ivar's interaction with, I forget the prince's name, like the young prince, I can't remember, but their interactions were kind of interesting. But then we get to Ivar's death. So of course Ivar's like, well, I need to go back to England, you know, to finish my match with King Alfred. And then, I mean, like the battle was cool. It was a really cool battle. You know, King Alfred, again, I think this was a standout scene for him, coming forward as an actor and as a character as well. Even though they're, I don't argue too much about haircuts in this show, but the fact that everyone started getting buzz cuts or like the skin fade, like that's a cool modern thing. I do that. But like, we're pretty certain that wasn't a style back in the day. So him coming in with this modern haircut, I'm like, did they call you because you forgot to film some scenes? I mean, it looked cool, but it's like, I don't think that's a hairstyle people were rocking back in the day. Anyways, the final battle was cool. Ivar's death was dumb. I hated Ivar as a character, and I really wanted to see him die in a better way, but he died like a bitch. To be honest with you, I mean, he's just kind of standing there and like having his like flashback, and then he just like runs into this like scared dude with like a little pocket knife, and he's just like, "Don't be scared," and gets stabbed a bunch, and then like cries and hits Skirt's arms. Like I was watching that, and I was like, because really after the death of Bjorn, I had to wait several episodes for that to happen, and I'm sitting there like, is this really why I watched after Bjorn's death, was just to watch Ivar cry and say he's scared? Really bizarre. Especially like historically, Ivar as a character has a really interesting death because I think this is in Neil Price's, or is it Neil Oliver? I can't keep it. And then there's Neil Gaiman. I can't keep track of him, but one of the history books was talking about how they found Ivar's grave and he was buried with like 200 of his warriors, and they were all like, their bodies were exhumed across England so they could all be buried together and in theory go to Valhalla together. So, you know, for him to die in that way was just not very good, even though I didn't like him as a character. So let's see here. Yeah, Ivar's daughter. Oh, anyway, so yeah, Ivar's death was weird. I think that's a good transition to Hvitserk. Hvitserk annoyed the ever-living fire out of me because we had to watch this dumb beginning of the season where he just was just like, oh, I'm so scared of Ivar. Oh, I'm going to do mushrooms and drink a lot. And like did that and was just like, had his weird eye thing and like his long, nasty hair, kind of looked like Smeagol running around, talking about Ivar all the time. And then like is literally there to kill Lagertha in a horrible way. We'll get to that soon. And then gets banished into the woods, magically runs into Ivar as he's doing an exploration into Norway, and then was like cuddling next to him after complaining about how tormented he was. I mean, sure, if it's like Stockholm syndrome, maybe. But then he's like buddy and is there, you know, helps him invade, you know, Kattegat again, and then is there at his death and ends up converting in the end. Hvitserk's story is just lame, man. It's just, they really ruined his character and they really didn't have a purpose for him. Just like Sigurd, I wish they would have just killed him off because they clearly didn't know what they were doing. And once again, you know, this story's taking place over years and it seems like him and Ivar didn't age a day. And that really bothered me as someone that enjoys film. Let's see here. Haven't seen anything else. So yeah, as far as Lagertha's death, so again, I have an interesting 3-part problem with this. I liked Lagatha's story, how she kind of was a retired shield maiden, inspired this town to defend themselves. Really enjoyed those scenes. Loved her battle with the white hair guy, I think his name was. I forget his actual name, but white hair. I wish they would have killed her in that fight. They killed her 20 seconds later or 10 minutes later, but I wish they would have killed her in that fight. It would have been a fitting end for an amazing character for a shield maiden. But the fact that she gets in this fight, gets slashed in the side, is an old woman bleeding out. She's like, I need to ride back in the middle of the night to go tell my son. And so she rides alone back to Kattegat, wounded. I mean, this is dumb. Like, a shield maiden, an experienced shield maiden, would never just ride back to Kattegat alone in the middle of the night during the rain with a open wound from a fight that she just did. All to just wander around the city at night to get stabbed by shroomed out Fitskirt. And it's like, they only did this to fulfill the prophecy that was given seasons before that none of us would have cared if they actually fulfilled or not. So I think her death was pathetic. I thought it was awful. I think they had a much better moment to kill her with white hair. Now, having said that, her funeral had me in tears. Her funeral was powerful. It was beautiful. It was well shot. It was emotional. And seriously, when I saw her body like drift down into the ocean and lay next to Ragnar's, I was bawling like a baby. I really would love to do like a scene of that, like basically just take that scene and put Helvegen next to it, because Helvegen is basically a funeral song. Surprised they didn't use that for it. But it was just, I mean, her send-off is one of the best send-offs of any character in the show. It was absolutely amazing, and I loved it. I just wish they would have killed her in a more honorable way. Yeah, Traveling Spear said, oh, it's good to see you, brother. Traveler Spear, Lagatha's death was horrible. However, her funeral was beautiful and was very emotionally charged. Yeah, completely agree. Vitskirk basically took Guthrum's history at the end of season 6 rather than going to Jorvik and becoming king until he died. Yeah, exactly. Northman, glad I was the only one to cry that part. I cry every second episode in that series. Okay, so speaking of crying, Bjorn's death. We're making good time on this. So Bjorn's death also had me in tears. I hated the false death they did with him. I really didn't like the whole like, oh, he's going to be king of all Norway. And then they have a moment with Harold, and he's just like, and King Bjorn's like, I refuse just to be elected. I need to be chosen by the people, or I need to be chosen in an election, blah, blah, blah. And then Harold wins because he's a slimy bastard. And then the whole like weird thing between them, and then they got to team up to defend against Oleg, which they didn't lose. And then somehow Ivar moves from a boat up a river, up a mountain, down into the village, across, over into the beach to stab Bjorn. What? Oh, and the whole battle was dumb to me. I hated the battle of the Russian invasion. I thought it was poorly planned. I thought it was poorly shot. I thought it was poorly shown. Like, yes, if your goal was for them to lose, I understand. But the whole thing where they just like go to behind the village to climb a massive mountain with an army to come back into the village. Like, what? How did you get the ropes up there in the first place? Oh my gosh, I was so pissed. And then the fact that Ivar somehow made it and crawled all that way just to stab Bjorn on that beach. Dumb. I hated it. Ooh, I'm heated. But yeah, then Bjorn has this, sick thing on this deathbed. I don't even really touch the fact that he had 2 wives. That was bizarre. Bjorn's a man whore, whatever. So his death scene, though, where he unites the kings of Norway, everyone in Norway as the true king of Norway, was great. I do feel like they kind of ruined that by just having Harold become king again. It's just like, kill Harold off. I am so tired of seeing his smug face. But Bjorn's death was so powerful. Him sitting there, shot with 3 arrows, already stabbed, like his body is visibly decaying from the infection from the original stab wound, and him just holding that sword in the air to send all the armors out. Oh, I'm getting choked up just thinking about it. Like, that was a powerful scene. And we do know, of course, that King Bjorn, Ironside does have a burial mound in, I think is it Sweden or Norway? He has a burial mound. And so we do know he was an actual king. Of course, his story isn't like this necessarily. But, to see him in that burial mound, to see, his conclusion, well, I think they messed around with Bjorn's story way too much. His end was very fitting and very powerful. And it really got me fired up. Like, I really loved his end. Yes, the Rus invasion didn't make sense. Why would they just do a sea invasion when they could just invade via land? Yeah, why not just like, oh, they're all right here, sail slightly further down and land? I don't understand. Bro, the stuff Bjorn. Okay, yeah, that was really weird. Heathen Hedgewitch says, I think they were knocking off Jon Snow thing more than that. I agree. Can you make a video about the best pagan music, please? Ernesto, I actually have made a video. It's called The History of Northern Folk Music. I do talk about a lot of the bands and the history of Northern folk music and Warjuna's new album, so definitely check it out. Hail King Bjorn Ironstein, buried in Uppsala. Yeah, so yes, Sweden. In Sweden, very good. Okay. So yeah, Bjorn's death was amazing. Harold Finehair's death. So happy to see that smug motherfucker die. I was so tired of Harold. I mean, his character to me, again, I think I've said this before in this live stream already, it just has so many ups and downs and sides and loop-de-loops and rolls and blah, 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 blah. Absolutely hated it. He had so many moments where I was like, I kind of like Harold. I kind of hate Harold. I really hate Harold. I kind of like Harold. I didn't know what to think of him anymore by the end. And he also, totally rapes that one chick. So, or Harold, Bjorn's second wife, then takes her as a wife, but he actually wanted his first wife. Hated his story. Absolutely hated his story. But his death was really good. Sadly, for a character like him, watching him, just die slowly by the tree, and the guy's like, "You're gonna be alone." He looks over, see his brother, who he's totally killed. And they sing, "My mother told me," I assume in Old Norse, was a very amazing thing. But yeah, I mean, it was the best Viking death, I feel like, in the whole show, besides Bjorn at the very end. Okay, let's see here. The Russian story and its conclusion, I thought was weird. I thought it ended very strangely. Yeah, the end of the show was just really muddy to me. King Oleg's death was just kind of, half-baked. One thing I did want to note on this season as well is that the music was really good. I enjoyed the introduction to Heilung into it. I enjoyed some of the pagan scenes. They had some beautiful offering scenes. They had the priest come out. Again, they had a human sacrifice for Lagertha, and I thought that scene was okay. It was weird. It was very much shadowed by the scene of the human sacrifice in the earlier seasons. But yeah, I enjoyed the music. I thought the music was really good. Let's see here. The aging dilemma is still very prominent here with many of the characters, just not aging a lot. North American plotline. Okay, that was, I think, the last note I really had before concluding this live stream. So the North American plotline to me was okay. It took up too much time, in my opinion, for a plotline that was very slow, having Ube travel across all the way to North America, from Iceland over. I mean, it was cool getting to see the interactions of the natives and the Viking people. It's hard to say. We really don't know historically how that went. We know that the Vikings had a settlement here. It was no longer there at a certain point. So it's hard to say whether they were chased off, killed, left, or if they integrated into native culture. It's hard to say. It's kind of chalked up in the air. Obviously, the show kind of leads us to believe the fact that they kind of integrated into native culture and they stayed there, or they eventually were chased out. And we're really left with the final scene of the show being Floki speaking with Ube on the beach. I think my favorite line from that, which really gave me a good chuckle, was Floki talking about how he still sees Ragnar at night. And he's just like, "Oh, Ragnar, he asked me to build him another boat. And I don't know why, because he's dead." And I was like, that's really funny. So again, I don't feel like they kind of moved him away from religion, because Ube asked him, and he's just like, "What do you think the gods are here?" And he's like, "Don't ask me about the gods. Like, I am nothing but an ant, just thankful for the leaf above my head," or whatever it was. And so I enjoyed that kind of interaction. I wish they would have kind of left him alone as far as his pagan beliefs, but he definitely seems to have found his own way and his own understanding. And at least he's still honoring the fact that Ragnar was a powerful being, a powerful person that he still has a connection with. And even though I didn't really love Ube's character, all the way through the show, I thought he was just always kind of hanging around. And of course, his weird conversion and his unconversion and then blah, 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 blah. His final scene with Floki was really good. Overall, I enjoyed the final scene of the show, whereas, shows like Game of Thrones, I was personally very unsatisfied with like many others. I enjoyed the end scene of I was about to call it Game of Vikings, Vikings. I enjoyed it. Overall, am I happy that I watched the last couple seasons? Am I glad I picked it back up? I think so. I think I understand a little bit more of the show. I probably will watch certain scenes. Like I've watched, Lagertha's death a couple of times. Her funeral. I've watched Bjorn's death a couple of times. I've watched, a few of the standout moments. But the pathway to get to those amazing moments is kind of weak. And I find that the show, season 5 was definitely the worst season. I absolutely hated season 5. Honestly, I can almost tell you could skip season 5. Nothing really notable happens. You just have a lot of back and forth drama. I feel like if you just go straight from season 4 over to season 6, you might have a pretty decent time, and it might be what I do on a rewatch of the show. I don't think you'd really be missing much. There are some standout scenes in season 6 that are worth watching just because of the cinematography, the music, and the emotional weight behind them. Just really getting to those moments is a struggle. So before I get to my final notes, I'll try to catch up here in the comments. Sentinel says your Floki impression is so good. Thank you very much. I think they were told we're welcome to stay, but this land can't be there. So I think they end up leaving. Okay, yeah, I couldn't quite remember. Again, after Bjorn's death, I really checked out after Bjorn's death. After Bjorn's death, I was like, there's no one left alive I actually want to root for. Like, I don't want to root for Ivar. I don't want to root for Harold. I guess I'm like, it's like someone said, I was like, I guess I'll root for Alfred. I don't know. I was really confused in the end. Jacob, do the Floki laugh. I'll have to build up to it. Chris Harden says, I watch Ivar's "You Can't Kill Me" speech from York every Monday morning. Floki does not joke about boat building. Uba and Vinland, Floki, you're alive. Floki, you didn't get crushed by a collapsing volcano. Wait. Yeah, very much true. So I think this... I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts as I kind of get to my final moments here? I want to hear your guys' thoughts in the live chat here. And if you're watching afterwards, put them down below. What are your final thoughts on the conclusion of this show? But let me read your final thoughts here. What you thought of the show's end. Do you think it's worth watching? What are your favorite scenes? Kind of give me, I'll give you a couple minutes here. This has, rolled over an hour, so we'll be ending it here pretty stern. Ryan O'Ryan. Okay. Let's see here. Thoughts on seeing Jormungandr in season 6. Again, it was cool. It was fine. Season, I don't know. I guess it was just another one of those things where I was just like, oh, that's cool, I guess. I feel like they should have pulled those, given me those punches later. So who, let's see here. I mean, who wouldn't want a relationship with Lagatha? Fair. Sniper 2000X, does anyone think it's a shame they didn't include Dublin or any of the Ireland in the show? Yeah, I mean, because that's one of Ivar's really cool things is Dublin, I believe, is he establishes Dublin as a colony, So I kind of wish they explored that a little bit better. Ivar as a character is actually very interesting in history, and I feel like they really just kind of went their own way with Ivar into the show. My final thoughts, you had no one to root for after Bjorn. Bro, what about the second oldest? Uba was truly guided by Floki at his best. Again, I had trouble with Uba. I feel like he had so many back and forths. I had trouble connecting with him as a character. While they definitely picked an actor that looked very similar to Travis Fimmel as his height of Ragnar. And I feel like they left him in a good place. I mean, compared to all the other brothers, obviously, were mostly dead besides Vitskirk. Oh, funny little anecdote. What about that, like, Magnus kid, like the supposed son of Ragnar who totally wasn't? That was so funny. I don't know why they gave him any screen time because he was really just there, like, running around, clearly not one of Ragnar's kids, hanging out, and then just, like, totally died like a little baby. Like, again, season 5 is weird. Okay, good. I'm glad Seth and all agrees. Daryl says one of the best shows ever. Some of the best moments in TV ever is what I will finish the show with. Oh, Magnus shows up and dies. Yeah, there's a couple of really good character moments as far as their ends. Again, I feel like Rollo, maybe he just decided he was done with the show, but I feel like I wish I would have gotten another scene with him. His final scene was really back in season 4, I believe was the last time where he was trying to, was it season 4 or was it later where I can't remember his last scene. Was it where he tries to convince Bjorn that he was actually his father, which again was weird. Don't do that to me. Or was it when he returned to his wife and she was mad at him? I can't remember, but I feel like his character kind of got tossed away. I think the last conversation between Uba and Other was really reflective of their times, but also of our faith belief. That's really powerful. I like that. So my final notes on the show, let me make sure I got everything I said here. See. So the show began, to me, the show began with a distinct voice and was under pressure to keep up with The Last Kingdom and Game of Thrones. I don't feel like they really know where the show was going to go. I don't think they actually expected the second season. They really were just like, here's season 1, let's see how it goes, at a relatively small budget. And most of the actors at that time were very not known. And it really turned into an international phenomenon. A lot of people enjoyed it, and of course, it affected this religion quite a bit. So I think it had a very unique and distinct voice when it first came out, and it continued that unique voice all the way up to about season 3, when I felt like they started getting pressure from shows like Game of Thrones, which were beginning to end, and other shows that were keeping up, like Last Kingdom. I think the writers started to freak out because I do think that their views dropped down after the death of Ragnar, and so I think they started really struggling to find ways to keep people interested in the show, which ultimately led to its ending only 2 seasons after the death of Ragnar. And of course, their weird transition away from History Channel all the way up to Amazon Prime in the very end was also very strange. So I do think the show was starting to have a lot of background issues and a lot of different corporate voices as more money got involved, and a lot of pressure from the outside came in as well. And as someone previously mentioned, I believe that it may have started getting picked up on that the show was having an effect on the pagan community, and they started playing around with that as well. I would not deny that as well. I think let's see here. Alias Alone, it was just all right. And I'm worried to see the spinoff with Jarl Hakons as a mixed woman, instead taking it as a historical Jarl Hakon. I don't know nothing against the actress at all. I really don't know anything about the follow-up series. I'm curious to see how it goes. The Last Kingdom still has at least another season or 2 in it, if not more. Curious to see more of that. I have noticed a lot more movies and TV shows coming around with Viking themes. My father was telling me about one. He was actually like, you probably need to check this out. It was on Amazon Prime, and it's about a guy who's basically like the son of Thor. It was like the reincarnation of Thor or something like that. I can't remember the name, but it was basically the same plot line of Ragnarok, the Netflix show. It's interesting that, again, Vikings has established this media content as, moving forward with Viking media. Vikings really has made a lasting impact. Let's see here. Sniper 2000, my take on the show, it's good, but as a historical accurate show, it isn't great. So I was recently asked on a blog post, or I guess I technically wrote an article for a university newspaper that reached out to me to see if I could talk about Norse paganism and its modern movement. And one of their joking comments was at the very end, they basically asked, hey, what do you think of Thor Ragnarok? And I think the way I put Thor Ragnarok is kind of how I feel about Vikings. Like, it's an entertaining show. It has some really great standout moments. But as far as a historically accurate piece, it should not be taken seriously. Now, I think it does capture some elements of Viking life decently. But when it gets caught up in its own, entertainment value stuff is when it really takes, a hit to the face. Let's see here. Tony Collatru, do you plan on releasing more content for the Midgardian magazine? Love the reviews and other articles on there. So right now, I don't think the Midgardian has actually been updated in a while. I know they've been, it's just with everything, getting all the people together to release articles on a timely basis has been hard. So considering the fact that there are literally, there's several people here in the US, there's people in Denmark and Iceland and Norway. And obviously with everyone working from home right now, still, especially in Scandinavia, it's been hard to get the articles together. My content is relatively, hey, I think I'm pretty proud of myself. My content's pretty kept up. There is actually my review on their YouTube is actually mostly up to date. I've done 4 reviews for them so far, and I have 2 more to go within my contract. I do intend to continue to make content for them, but as far as my video game reviews, I'm only scheduled for 2 more at the very least. And then we're going to renegotiate and see what they want me to talk about. But I do have a review for Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice that's actually up on their YouTube right now. And I just got done with the Crusader Kings 3. I don't think it's posted yet. I sent that to them last week. I think I'm going to do 2 Human as like a retro review because it was one of the earlier Viking games to come out, or at least Viking-inspired games. And then I think I'm going to either do Assassin's Creed Valhalla Celtic DLC because it's bound to be pretty large. I think it comes out this week. Or I'm gonna try to do Vanaheim or Valheim, whatever it is. But I need to get PC to play it. I just have a Mac, which is not out for yet. So I might do Northgard, I think it's also called. So I got a couple more reviews still coming for them. If you have Netflix, watch the show Ragnar. It's so good. I enjoy that show. I actually have done a review for that show as well. Whoa. CK3 hit me up. My CK, it was still lit right now. So I did a review for just Crusader Kings in general. I have about 580 hours in Crusader Kings 2. And then I only put in about 40 in Crusader Kings 3 just because I was like, I've already reformed paganism and taken over all of Europe, and that took me 500 hours. So I really don't want to have to do that all over again. So yeah, I enjoyed my review of that. So ending this video, I think I've covered all the points, but my final points on Vikings, I think you should watch it. I definitely think you should watch it up to Ragnar's death. I think there's some standout scenes, or at least watch some highlights at the very end if you haven't watched the show. But as far as my final thoughts on it, I do think it has made a lasting impact on the pagan community that we cannot deny. I think it's a relatively okay show with really standout moments, and some of the pagan scenes are really good. But we are going to be feeling the effects of the Viking aesthetic that came from the show for generations to come. I don't really know what I feel about the new season or new series. I'm gonna have to wait and see. But Viking media doesn't seem to be going anywhere, and it's still very popular, which is both a good and a bad thing, because there's going to be things as people come to this, if they're watching Vikings, as I did, they're going to have misconceptions about the faith. And I think definitely this comes through in things like blood eagles and human sacrifice. It was a very overglorified thing in the TV show, whereas obviously modern practitioners, we do not ever consider things like that, or hopefully you don't consider things like that. The faith now is very different than it was, and also we just really don't know what the faith was back then, besides a few written sources and vague murmuring. So we're trying our best. But I enjoyed the show for the most part. I enjoyed the final season. Okay, again, some great moments that made me cry, but also some moments that made me cry because they were so boring. So right after this live stream, first off, thank you all for joining us. I am actually going to roll over to a Patreon live stream here in about 5 minutes, because I know I haven't done a live stream here in a while, and I do want to answer questions for people that are new. But for the most part, that's why I do have the Patreon live streams. I do those every 2 weeks or so, where I kind of just talk about my personal experiences, talk about my personal journey when I'm exploring in the faith. But it's also the best time to ask me questions, and I can go in depth as far as answering them. So if you are interested in just kind of talking to me a little bit more one-on-one, there's usually only like 20 people in there. Please consider donating to Patreon down below and supporting the Wisdom of Odin. But you gain access to the live streams, the Patreon, and or the Discord, as well as the early access videos. And you just get to, support me in doing my crazy stuff and having live streams and talking about Vikings all day. So thank you all so much for joining me here. I hope you join me on Patreon as well. And if you've joined us after the fact, thank you for watching this long video. Let me know down below what you think of the Vikings TV show. And once again, thank you all so much for joining me. But I'm getting on the, oh, wait, we have to do it. We have to do it. I haven't done this in so long. So I say until the hall, and then I need to see a rain of skulls, because that's usually what needs to happen. So you have about 5 seconds to type in skull into your phone, and then I want to see the rain come. So everyone, thank you so much. And hopefully I see you on Patreon. And until the hall, skull. I'm waiting, you fools. Skull with me. Skull with me. There it is. Make a grown man cry. I love to see it. All right, y'all. Have a wonderful night, and I will talk to you later. Goodbye.